Okay, so today I'll be reviewing and installing two of these smart switches. SW1 is the model number, compatible with Google Assistant, Alexa, and IFTTT. This is everything that comes in the box. It's for a 2-gang, and there's 2 single pole smart switches. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Here I have already turned off the power to my circuit board and remove the screws. I'm just going to take this wall plate off. I'm going to be taking these and replacing them with the rocker switches. And so the first step we want to do is disconnect everything that we currently have connected. And so I'm just going to take all of these off and disconnect the wires. And you want to make sure on your existing, there's little things here that won't allow you, they're paper backs that don't allow the screw to fall off. And so don't try to force these out because they're actually there for a reason. You might notice there's 3. I'm going to be replacing all 3 of these. And the first 2 I'm going to replace with the smart switches, and the third one's just going to be a normal dumb rocker switch. So we can pull all of these out, and again, you want to take a look at all of your wiring and the instructions for wiring. If you have any questions, contact an electrical professional, but we can touch all of these wires because the power is off, but we want to identify a couple of quick things here. Your white's going to be your neutral. We have ground and then 2 powers, one's live and one's a load wire. And so those are going to be the electrical outputs, but we want to kind of just pull everything out. We have our ground, which is going to be the bare copper wire. So we want to pull all of this out because we're going to need to use these connections. The ground's all the way in the back, but we have each of these that have the ground, all of our power cables, and our neutral. So we're going to go ahead and take all of these contacts off to expose our wire. And so here we can see this is my ground wire. It's normally green, and it's going to be the bare copper wire. And then we have our 2 load wires here for this single pole switch. If you're trying to do a 3-way, you'll see 4 contacts, and that's not what this product is. It's a single pole switch, and this is going to be our neutral. So this is neutral, these are powers, and the power cables are normally just various colors, whether they're red and black, black and black. Here you can see black, 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 white, white, black. So these are the power, this is ground, and the neutral is normally going to be inside the box. And this is what I'm replacing. And so if we take a look at our smart switch, we can see we have neutral, so that's going to be the bare copper wire, live and load, that's going to be our 2 electricity or hot wires, and then our ground, and our ground is going to be the bare copper wire. Neutral is going to be the white one. And so to connect this neutral wire, this comes in the packet, and we can see that this is going to be the white wire that's going to go from neutral to this white wire in here. And they give you an extra tie here in case it doesn't come with one. And these are the screws to connect this onto the wall. So as we're talking about the sizing of this, once I remove these, you want to look at the sizing to ensure that these holes are going to line up with this one, but you notice that there's these side tabs to kind of make it fit a little better. And likely these are going to collide, and instead of having these overlap, because that's not going to give you a nice finish once our outside cover is on, we're probably going to have to break these off to make them more flush, so that they kind of sit next to each other so that they actually fit the 3-gang white cover that I have. So we're going to break those off possibly. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove the rest of these wires and then show you how to put them together. And if you have troubles remembering, you might want to do one at a time or maybe label these wires just so that you don't get any of them confused, because then you won't have a working switch. So again, these are the hot wires that I'm taking off. This is the ground wire, and the neutral again is inside the box here. So a couple of things that you need to get this done is a flathead screwdriver to take the screws off at the beginning, pliers if we were gonna wanna break these off, and or your wrench to help break these off as well. And some optional tools that might be needed are wire cutters and strippers in case you need to make these any longer, cut them off, whatever, and some electrical tape in case you have exposed wire that you want to cover up. And so I'm pretty much just going to straighten these wires out because this connection, you loosen these Phillips head screws, and you can put the wire directly in there and tighten it up. So I'm just going to straighten these wires out so that they can fit flushly in there, since they're all bent from the last installation. And now that all the wires are gone, we can kind of do a rough test to see if this is actually gonna fit in here. And you can see if I line up where the screws go here, it sits like this, and you can see that this kind of sits on the outside of the wall. But if I get my neck switch, and orientation here does matter. There's a sign here that says arrow up, and it points up. So the rocker switch is on the bottom, the arrow's on the top with the light on the top. And you can see what I was talking about earlier. If I push my neutral back in and try to line this up, the holes won't line up. The holes won't line up here because this is not giving it enough space. So we're gonna have to take all 6 of these tabs off, and likely on this side as well when I install my next decorative switch as well. So the one in the middle, I'm gonna have to take 6 off. I'm gonna have to take these 3 off right here. So I'm not sure how tough these are. It's already perforated on one side at least, but the instructions say to take pliers and or the wrench and try to break these off. Let's switch over to the wrench. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to break these off, so maybe just bending them down might work. Might have more success with this. Here we go. So I would try, don't start with the pliers. Go ahead and start with your wrench, and they're very easy to pop off. And then on my middle switch, I'm just gonna do the same thing. I'm just gripping it and then twisting it up and down or back and forth, and they come straight off. And there you go. So now we're just going to go ahead and install this. I would probably advise against using a drill. If you are using a drill, set your setting down to lowest option so that you don't over tighten and break anything, since this is a plastic enclosure. Basically what this setting does is if I try to over tighten, it kind of stops you from doing that. If you have it set too high, it kind of drills a little too hard. And if you have a setting to go really fast or slow, put it all on the lowest setting, or just actually don't use a drill like I'm doing here. But since I'm recording a video, I'm trying to save time, and I've done this a lot of times already, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull them out enough so that the wire can go in, so you can kind of see where the screw is, but you don't want to pull them out all the way. So now these 3 wires can go in. And so For our ground, that's actually gonna go up top. And so I will loosen this one up. And let's see if this ground fits into that hole. It does. So once you push it all the way in where it doesn't go in anymore, we're gonna actually tighten that screw down. And you can see my drill's automatically stopping it, where it's giving it enough tension to lock that into place, but it's not gonna break any of the plastic because of the setting I put it on. And so this is actually a power, this is power, and that's our neutral. So I'll do the neutral last. Let's go ahead and put in our live and load wires. You can see that this is the live wire because it's actually coming in through here. And this is my load wire because it's actually filtering through. And so in this case, it doesn't really matter. In the case of a three-way, that would matter. And so this is my load wire. I'll put it into the load and tighten that up. And I will take my live wire and stick that into the live spot here. And this wire is actually pretty short. So you want to make sure it's pushed all the way in and it's not even in the hole. So ensure that that's pushed all the way in. Might need to hold it in and tighten down your screw. And again, it's going to stop me, and you want to make sure you can't pull that out. Again, with our load wire, and this is why I was saying you might need some electrical tape. You don't necessarily like to have this exposed wire here. So you could take your wire cutters and trim that down. I will likely go back and do that myself. But for the purposes of this video, we will go ahead and continue on. And so this is the load wire. I'm tightening down that. And let me switch this back around so you can see none of these wires are coming out. They're all inside that hole. Now we just need to do our neutral wire. And so the reason why this comes with an actual wire for the neutral is because all of the switches that are going to be in your single gang, double gang, or triple gang, or whatever, however many you have, they're all going to be stuck into one neutral. If you don't have a neutral, if you're in an older building that doesn't have neutral, Google or reach out to a professional to figure out how that's going to work. But most of these smart switches don't necessarily work if you don't have access to the neutral, and you might have to have some extra wiring ran from your electrical box to support a neutral run. So I pretty much just did the same thing, stuck it in all the way, pushed this down all the way, and now we can go. The box also came with one of these, but you can see I have about 6 cables coming out of my neutral. And so this Mac Daddy big red thing here, you're just gonna untwist. You're gonna see a whole bunch of cables in there, and this is gonna pretty much attach to that. But I'm gonna wait until I actually get my second smart switch installed to put this back on. So we'll hold off on doing that neutral. And so now, again, make sure that the circle's on the bottom, the light's on the top, and orientation is going to be on here where it says up. And now I need to unbend my wires again. So I'm going to take my handy dandy pliers, unbend these, make sure they're pretty straight so that they go directly into that hole that we talked about earlier. And now, once you straighten all of these out, we can install them into our second smart switch. Again, the product comes with 2 smart switches for 2 gang boxes with a 2 gang wall plate. But in this case, I have a 3 gang wall plate, so I have an extra dumb rocker switch that I'm going to install as well. This does not come with the product, and I have a 3 gang wall plate that I'm going to install in place of the 2 gang wall plate. But it's very, very, very important to take a look at all the wiring documentation, all the wire documents that are in there, and make sure you turn off the power before you start touching all of these cables. So I straightened them all out. Now I'm going to loosen up all of the screws here. And again, you can see that there's a gold screw inside of all of these holes. And so the cable will not go in unless you pull these out. And you want to pull them out up into, you can pull them out all the way, or you can just pull them out until you can see a black hole. And that's gonna be enough space for the wire to go in. And don't forget your ground up top. That was a little tricky because it's silver on silver, it's not a gold screw. And now we're just gonna repeat the process. This is our live wire because it's coming from the wall. This is our load wire because it's connected to the rest of the load. And this is our ground wire because it's bare copper. Bare copper or green is gonna go into the ground hole. We're gonna stick that in, make sure it goes all the way in. Then we're gonna tighten this down. Once it stops, you can't pull this out anymore. Make sure you pull it pretty strongly to make sure that that's not gonna come undone when you start pushing all these wires back in. That's very, very important. And again, this is our load. So this is gonna go into the load hole. Push that in all the way. Then we can tighten this down until it can't go anymore. Pull to test. Finish straightening this one out. And this is our live wire. And we can see that we're gonna put it into the live hole. Make sure it goes all the way in. And again, I'm gonna have to hold this one down. Just trying to get away and screw this down until it stops. And again, do our pull test. Make sure that that's in there very snugly. Last thing, again, in your packaging, you'll find this white bag with all of these components. These are the 2 screws to put in, our neutral wire and our neutral electrical nut that we don't need in my case. And so again, stick one side into here where it says neutral, stick that all the way in. There should not be any exposed wire like I have here. I'm gonna go back and trim those down. And once that's in, again, pull test, it's all snug. And our last step, I'm gonna move this out of the way so that we can see. All right, so our last step, move that out the way. That's for our next one. What we see here is our neutral bundle and our 2 neutral wires from the smart switch. I will quickly show you why these were in a bundle without the other next poles. It's because if I have a dumb switch here, this is my rocker switch, I have 2 live wires, live and load, ground, but there's no neutral. These, since they're smart switches, need the neutral, so that's why we're gonna connect it to this bundle that was here by itself. So I'm gonna take this extremely large compared to the one that came with the product. We can see the difference here. This is if you're gonna do it 1-to-1 wire, if you're in a single pole scenario, but I have 3 single poles, so this bundle is very big. So I'm gonna actually try to put this on. The best way to do this is to start to twist these together into one wire, and then we're going to try to twist this so that we can put it on and comfortably twist this right, so righty-tighty, and try to lay this on top so that this screw mechanism on the inside catches this and screws it together to the bundle that's already there. So this might be a little tricky since my bundle is so very large. In some cases, you might need to purchase a larger one in your scenario or leverage the one that it came with. So this is gonna be a little tricky. I'm gonna try to hold it together and then screw this on top of here. So I need to push this closer. Not a lot of room to work with. Okay, but if you put the white wires, the ones that we're trying to connect, a little ahead of the bundle that's already there, that will give you a better chance of having this screw mechanism catch on into this whole bundle, since the gauge of this wire is not as thick as this wire. So you're gonna put this a little ahead of your copper wire. So the silver wire is what we're trying to connect to the copper wire. Put that there, and we're gonna push on, twist until you can't twist anymore, and then try to pull the white wire to see if it caught on. If it did not, just keep trying until it actually catches on. So here we go. All right, this is so thick, so it's really hard to turn. but you're gonna keep turning it until you can't anymore because you don't want these white wires to come loose. And it looks like that's a pretty snug connection. So I can't pull these white wires out, and that's the neutral. So the neutral bundle, the 2 neutral wires from the smart switches, and now I'm just gonna push that back in because my 3rd dumb switch that did not come with this product does not need that neutral switch. And so I'm gonna align this one to be up, that one to be up. I wanna push this bundle of wires back so that they're not in the way. It's kind of hard to do because of the amount of wires that are in here. But we're just gonna push this back. Just try to navigate the wires back safely. Push this one back, make sure all the wires are out of the way. This is a pretty tight fit, but you can make it work. So I have these 2 bundles. So my neutral wires and my load bundle are kind of stacked on top of each other. So I'm gonna try to move the neutral behind that bigger bundle so that I can have more depth, more clearance going backwards, as well as pushing them down so they're not hitting this blue thing on the back. So just play around with the wires. We've been ensured that they're connected very well, so you can move them however you like, and they should stay connected. I'm going to connect this last one really quickly before I screw all these in case I need to move anything around. And so again, these are going to be a little different because the gauge is not going to fit in these holes that are here. So I'm going to actually have to wrap these around. A little different here, but we're not really reviewing this product. This should not have come out. Another reason not to use a drill. All right, and so basically we're just going to connect these 2 black wires, or your 2 hot wires, your live wire and your load wire, to these connections, and then my ground to my ground. So we don't need to worry about the neutral wire in this case, and I shouldn't have unbent these since this is a different use case altogether. So I'm just gonna bend these back so that they catch around here. And then kind of scoop these under. You kind of want the wire to go around these little brackets so that it doesn't come undone when you start to tighten them down. So now they're around the bracket, I can tighten my green ground nut. And we can see my drill automatically stopped to tell me it was tight enough and I can't move that anymore. And then we're gonna flip this over and do both of these here. So we're gonna just wanna do the same thing. Put these, that screw came off. So I'm gonna do this again. Put this already down. So technically the wire should be going in between those, but it's snug in there, so that's a valid connection in my book. Go ahead and take this one off since that was a lot easier. There's a little thing here that I'm putting in between that catches the wire Then I'm just sticking this back into the hole. So that did not catch. Basically what's happening is this wire is really thick, and so it needs to be crimped down so that it goes through this little mechanism here, but not too much. And if you're watching this video for the Smart Switch review, basically the last step is to put your screws in, turn on the electricity, and connect it to the Smart Life app. So just bear with me as I connect this last wire. There we go. We can see we can't pull that off anymore. And again, for these, orientation really doesn't matter, but generally your wires are going to be pointing out to the right. Your ground's going to be over on the left-hand side. But again, orientation doesn't matter on these right here. Now I'm just gonna push these back in. We're gonna test the fit sideways to make sure our screws go in. And we can see we took these tabs off on the side to allow this to actually go in. And so you wanna take the screw that this one came with and stick it into the hole that's right there on the backhand side. And again, down below, looks like the top one came off. So we're just gonna put that one back in. Make sure you line up the hole. And we can see that it's starting to come together. Looks like it's pointing this way a little. So just make sure you can actually rock these back and forth. You can see here. So I'm gonna make sure that this looks aligned. Hold it and then tighten it a little more. But we're not gonna wanna tighten all of them down until the very end when we do a test of the faceplate that goes on there to make sure everything's good. And so this did come with screws. If I can find them on the floor. These are the screws that it came with. And so I'm just going to, again, take these. There's multiple holes here. You actually want to use the one that's below the top one. The one up here, the top hole, is for the smaller screws that the faceplate uses. So don't use that. This screw will not fit in there. It's this larger hole on the bottom that allows you for more customization. You wanna line that up there, start to tighten it down. And with these, I'm gonna put all four before actually tightening them down so that I can ensure that the position's correct. You wanna get down level, look at where that hole is. You might need to look on the opposite side here to make sure that you're actually going into the hole. So I line that up and we're just gonna start to tighten this down. We can already see that these don't look to be even. And so we're probably gonna have to do some moving around here. And so this is not gonna be a problem if you are only on the 2-gang box. But this white package is where the screws came in. So I'm just gonna take these out. And again, you can look down, start to line these up. I can see the bottom one here, and it's gonna be the second hole, the one closer to the switch. Line this up, you might need a re-angle. And then I can start to tighten that down. And again, we're gonna do the same on the top. where we line this up and start to tighten that down. And again, you're gonna have to move these around a bit to make sure everything aligns. This is actually really off, and so I might have to take a closer look at how I'm gonna fix that. But the last thing here is, this is what this product came with for the 2-gang box. I have a 3-gang box where I took the other knob, the switch, and replaced it with a rocker. And so this is the faceplate I'm gonna use. This does not come with the product, but in my use case here, this is the one I'm gonna have to use. But at this point, once we put this faceplate on, we can go ahead and turn on the power, tighten these all the way down, and then connect these to the app once they connect to Wi-Fi.